So today we're going to talk about very, very briefly and simply the different states of the nervous system and how those impact our mental and physical health. So let me get this pulled up here. So basically there's a lot of different variations of how you can break down the nervous system, a lot that show the different emotional states. There's some that can kind of reflect more of a spiritual perspective. This one's pretty simple, but I like it just because of the red light, yellow light, green light, and because of the kind of association that we have with traffic lights about that, right? So think of your red light as dead stop, shut down. In this state, we have disassociation, numbness, depression, raised pain threshold, and that's both physical and emotional. So we can feel very sensitive and vulnerable. Two of the biggest ones that I think are the most important are the helplessness and the hopelessness. So when we experience those in specific situations, it's basically like there's no way out. So like, why even try, right? It's when you reach a point where everything is way too overwhelming. There's absolutely nothing that you can do. So like, why even try? So again, this isn't just a state that your body goes into. This goes hand in hand with emotions. So emotions can drive these responses and emotions can be results of these responses. And this is why I do what I do, because we tend to look at the brain, the spine, the nervous system, and then spirituality, and then emotions, and all of this stuff is like individual. It's not individual at all. It all goes hand in hand. And when we look at it like that, we're not just kind of creating these 5% shifts in our life or just focusing on one thing, trying to fix our mental health or create new patterns. It's neurological, it's nervous system based, it's spiritual, it's mindset. It all goes together. That's the whole point. That is why I am so passionate about what I do, working with the brain, working with the body, the nervous system, the cerebral spinal fluid, that whole cranial sacral system, working on the subconscious mind, which is 95% of those unconscious behaviors, actions, and then also working on that conscious mind too, because even though it's only 5%, it's actually still really important because it fuels all of these, right? A perfect example of this is thinking about how we can spiral ourselves with our thoughts into a state of anxiety, a panic attack, right? A panic attack or anxiety in general. Now, again, granted, there's a lot of chemical aspects of this. So you could have food allergies, you could have neurotoxins, these different things that could create an anxious state in your body. But we're thinking of more the emotional, mental, psychological aspects of anxiety. You can go there. You can go from sitting there, I'm okay, to suddenly thinking about something and then thinking about something more and then catastrophizing it and making it bigger and bigger and bigger until suddenly that is this anxiety in the room that is like an elephant that's crushing you. You can't even catch your breath. And that is because of those thoughts, right? They started very small, but they spiraled, they snowballed into something that was completely insurmountable. This is why mindset work is great, right? I've spent years and years and years studying mindset, and it created massive shifts in my life, in my career, in my body, and what I was able to do. But I was missing the nervous system aspect, and I kind of went too far to the other end of the extreme, which is what we do. So when we look at this, we understand when you're feeling hopeless, helpless, you feel trapped. So this happens a lot in abusive relationships and jobs that you just feel like, I've got to pay the bills, but this job is killing me. These feelings put you into this state because, again, it's like, why even try? The other thing that's important to note about this one is the conservation of energy. Your brain and body says survival is the only thing that's important, right? Again, your nervous system and our bodies, like they are very, very primal. They are animals at their core. They don't care about happiness or success or social connection or any of that when there's a threat. So it says conserve your energy, just shut down, shut down. Don't go anywhere, don't do anything. There's a bunch of threats. It's not safe, so shut down. Depression, and I use this a lot when I talk with my clients to describe depression as a protective mechanism, because it actually is. Again, there's the chemical, there's a lot of other components that can tie into that. But at its core, depression can also be very protective, because it says there's something out there that's very scary that's not going away. So if you're depressed, you will hunker down, you won't leave the house, and that's going to give you a better chance to survive. When we look at fight or flight, so something else to note here, the freeze is I can't win. I can't do it. It's just too much. The fight flight, this is the one that I feel like people are the most familiar with. Like in today's world, I feel like this is almost like, sometimes I'll hear it in shows, like you just hear people sort of understanding, oh, this fight or flight mode. They understand that this is this charge reactive state, right? It's the I can. This is very much where our pathological behavioral addictions kind of come into play, where we're addicted to drama, we're addicted to stress hormones, we are going. A lot of times throughout teenage years and college years and building careers and pursuing a mate, we are fight flight, especially women entering into the workforce the way that we have in the last 50, 70 years. Our bodies and our biology have like not quite caught up to the fact that we are working 24/7 and raising families and taking care of homes and everything else, right? It's why you have an epidemic of autoimmune disease and chronic illnesses among women in their 30s to 50s. This state right here, as stressful as it is and as bad as it can be, it's actually pretty productive. It's the I can. It's the we wake up and we may be tired and exhausted and overwhelmed, but we're still going to pick up that coffee cup, chug it, throw it back, and go forth and conquer, right? So what happens, this is fun, this is exciting, this gets things done, this is the I can, but eventually, especially if we're not taking care of our body, we're not sleeping enough, we're not exercising, we're not eating right, we're not getting vitamins and minerals, and we're not taking a moment to decompress, this starts to wear down. It's like we've been borrowing money with a really high interest rate, and suddenly we are so far in debt, there's like no way out. We often will then start going into the freeze mode more, as again, as a protective mechanism. The body's like, I don't know how much longer you think you can run on these fumes and cortisol and stress hormones, but we're running out of resources. We're not able to keep up with cellular repair. We are not doing well. So it starts to push you into this. So then we start again, this is for a lot of women kind of in their 30s, pushing 40s, just depending on your genetics and all the traumas and everything collectively. But you start to go into this more. You start to get into that shame, hopelessness, shut down, trapped, kind of feeling like, what's the point of life? Like that zest, that vigor, that ability to get up and go for it gets less and less. This starts to become more of our default. Now we have kids, we have jobs, we have bills to pay. So again, we might be in this on the weekends where we don't get anything done. Laundry piles up. Things are constantly just accumulating that we don't have the resources for. Monday morning, we got to clock in. So we switch back into this. So we spend a lot of years kind of cycling through this, right? And this down here gets less and less and less and less and less. We are less interested in this, and we are less able to actually tap into this. Now, what's important, and what I always share with my clients, I can't hardly think of a client that I've worked with over the years who doesn't have some sort of drama addiction. And I put that in quotations because that's not even a clinical term. But what people recognize that term to mean is, okay, so for example, I can spend 6 months working with someone, regulating their nervous system, working through a lot of traumas, rewiring their subconscious brain, creating new beliefs and thought patterns, right? Doing all of that. And we get to this great state and everything's good. Oftentimes, this is where people are kind of like, okay, I think I got a grasp on this. I'm doing good. And maybe they stop working with me and they want to kind of navigate it alone. Perfect. 3 months later, I get a call from them and they're like, I need to work with you again because I did this, 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 and this. And I suddenly sabotaged and spiraled. And now I'm back at square one and I don't know what happened. And what that looks like is everything that they were building, because this is a long process, right? We can create moment to moment change and big changes, but it's also just like going to the gym. You can create a lot of changes in 30 days, but if you stop working out, in 30 days, you can be right back to square one. It's exactly the same, right? So when you don't spend a lot of time over months and years really practicing this work, which is harder to do when you don't have a weekly check-in with a coach or a therapist, suddenly those old patterns come back and you get bored and you get reckless, and your old, hey, remember this? This was really fun and exciting. This kicks in full force, and your body is almost like trying to kind of make up for lost time. The reason that this becomes addictive is because, again, this kind of makes you feel alive. Well, this makes you feel alive. This can kind of make you feel almost like on the verge of death a little bit. But when you're oscillating up in this, you start to feel alive. So as we push to where we're more here, guess what? Our body may not be giving us much energy to work with because it's trying to conserve. But if you do something catastrophic enough, profound enough, life altering enough, you're going to trigger back into here. That's how it's going to work. Your body is incredibly resourceful. It's incredibly resilient. So with addiction, we understand that the dose has to continually be increased, right? We start with one drink, then we need two, then we need hard liquor, then we need more, then we need that and, pills, because the threshold in the brain, what it requires to get that same dopamine hit and that disassociation, it's more and more. Same exact thing happens with our own intrinsic emotions and hormones. First, it was a breakup with the boyfriend, right? It was a bad day at work, triggered us into this, and we still got things done. But eventually our body goes, nope, we can't deal with this. So we're going to go down here. Nope, we can't deal with this. So as it pushes more into this freeze mode, your subconscious mind thinks, we don't like it down here because this is close to death and we got to get things done. So let me create drama and chaos that will force my body to create more stress hormones. And then I'll be back up in here, and this feels really good, right? So 4, 5, 6 months, I'm working with clients. We're dropping in here. We're processing emotions where this is becoming the norm, right? Then all of a sudden they stop doing the daily practices. They stop being as committed to the path. And then there's this white zone, right? Now, this white zone was not created on this graphic intentionally, but I think it's perfect because it represents that stillness, that boredom that most people who have been in a chronic state of fight, flight, freeze are so uncomfortable with. This is what our subconscious brain tells us will kill us. It would much rather be here and fight, flight, freeze even, not feeling any of the things, than being still, calm, and having to deal with grief, rejection, heartbreak, loss of something deep, loneliness, isolation, despair, any of these things, right? So this is what we avoid. We're so scared to go here. Our brains, they're so smart in so many ways, but they're not so smart in other ways. We think going here will kill us. We think the boredom is the worst thing because this is sort of like a flat line. In addiction, we talk about flat lines where after so much dopamine, so many hits, so much arousal, so much, you just go up, up, up until you absolutely, like, your brain is just like, dude, we're maxed out, just like you're maxed out here. So even when you're on the drugs at full capacity, you're depressed, you're empty, you're restless, you're irritated. Most people understand this in substance abuse. They know that people need detox centers. They know that people act very erratic, that they get irritable, angry, they lash out, they lie, they're very destructive. What is not so talked about and should be is the fact that these intrinsic hormones and addictive substances, cortisol, noradrenaline, all of that can be just as addictive. And when we stop them, when we suddenly don't have them, whether we're here or we're just trying to make our way down here, we go through the same detox and recalibration period. That is the thing that is never talked about. Well, at least not in modern, mainstream psychology or health or addiction or anything else. It's what I talk about all the time in my work because it's so important for us to look at mental health through the lens of addiction when we have trauma involved, because trauma creates neural pathways. It creates biochemical responses and cascades that our brain and our body and our chemistry gets very reliant on. So when we're trying to redo all of that stuff and release the emotions and do create a whole new foundation to exist in, we're gonna have to deal with this flat line, this stillness, this nothingness. And that is generally where most people bail. And this is why, if people can continue to work with me or a coach or a therapist for 12 months at minimum, the risk of going backwards, back and forth, and relapsing and starting the process all over again becomes substantially smaller, because those neurocycles that take about 60 days to rebuild, you go through 6 of those, over 12 months, right? And you learn how to sink into this and actually process and be okay here. And this is a lonely, scary place to be. So having support and guidance can be really, really helpful. Otherwise, like my client I mentioned and many other people, you think you're okay, and then you have a moment and you're here in the stillness, the silence, and you kind of don't have that hand to walk you through it. And you're like, shit, go clear out your bank account and buy a new house on the coast, or start a new business, or you do something really extreme out of habit and out of sort of crisis to feel this, because this feels better than feeling this. Being stressed feels better than feeling catastrophic loneliness because of the fact that your dad abandoned you when you were a child, or you're grieving the loss of a relationship, or someone you loved recently passed away. We spend so much time in disassociation so we don't have to feel this, which again is here. If we don't want to feel this, we're going to go ahead and bypass this and go right to shut down and freeze because we don't want to feel it. This is also, it's important to note, this is TV, this is scrolling, this is social media, this is shopping, this is just that. It's that I can't, but at the same time, there's a lot of shutdown behaviors that are still medicating here. Video game, porn, like TV, just anything that you can sit there very passively. Your body can't, but your mind is still just numbing out and consuming things in massive doses to try to anesthetize the feelings down here, right? So here's the bad news, right? Here's the cycles we get in. Here's this little void space that we don't like, but where actually our biggest healing is if we can be okay with being here. And here's the other thing I'll mention on that before I move on. We think that that is going to kill us. We think if we go there and fully sit with the pain rather than bypass it and numb it and distract from it, that it's going to destroy us. We think it's this big. But when we actually walk in the room and we sit down and we turn the phone off and we take some breaths and we connect, it's actually this big. It's this big when you fully feel it in all of its capacity, like in your full capacity. You can feel it, it's short-lived, and then it evaporates, it dissipates. When you avoid it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And whether you think you're feeling it or not, it's destroying your life. It's causing you to stay in these states right here, which are not fun states to live in. Depression, disassociated, numbness, high pain threshold, rage, anger, frustration. Who wants to be here, right? We think that this is protection. We think that this is a better place to live. When we actually just go here and we fully feel, it's much smaller, it's much shorter. And here, this is the entry point to this, right? We can't get there generally without feeling this, not systemically. Now, when you go there and you feel those feelings, you process those feelings, you use the right tools, you have the right support, and you get here, this starts to become more of your default state. We're always going to pop up in these spots, right? That's just the nature of the game. These are perfectly appropriate responses to be in. They're there for a reason. It's just that we get stuck in them and we don't cultivate the tools to get here. And then we have this void of emotions we don't want to feel. So things get very off balance. But the more we do this work, the more we process, the more inquiry we do with ourselves, the more we feel, we open this container bigger and bigger and bigger to where we may pop up into these. And instead of all day, every day, it's a 30-minute lunch meeting that was stressful. It's, maybe some problematic family members. It's hard conversations. It's somebody cut you off in traffic and you almost got in a wreck. Cool. You went there for a minute. No problem. Use the tools, venture back down. This is your container that gets bigger and bigger and stronger the more you do this work. So the other thing I want to talk about is when you look at this, it can be really overwhelming, right? It's like, okay, well, this is my whole life, or this is my whole life. Generally, it's, again, every person that comes to me, they've rarely seen this. maybe at certain times in their youth years or something, summer camp or certain times when they were away from the household. This is not common for the people that I work with. We're looking at lifelong trauma and nervous system dysregulation. But we come up here, this is their life, this is their experience. There's so many emotions that tie into this, so many aspects of work, relationships, physical health that tie into this. And we're like, well, that's been my whole life. I don't even know what this is down here. So how do I get there? The good news is, even though I mentioned this is a longer process to gradually shift, just like getting in shape, if you have 5 pounds you want to lose, you've been fit your whole life and you eat pretty good, that's a pretty easy shift, right? But if you've had really pathological eating habits your whole life, like binge eating, food addictions, these deep-seated behaviors that impact us and make it very hard to create change, you've got 150 pounds to lose off of your body, a lifetime of no activity, compromised joints and connective tissue. Well, it's going to be a different process for you, right? It's going to take a longer amount of time to get to that end goal, but it doesn't mean that you can't start in the very moment that you exist in and grab some water and drink that. Maybe pour out the can of soda, maybe choose a different, healthier lunch. It's all of those small gradual shifts that can push you towards health, even if you're off track. You just keep going, you just keep going, you just keep going. It's all the little choices together, right? So everyone's going to have a different path and journey. They're going to have different tools that resonate. They're going to have different resources to get support. So everyone's path is different, but for everyone, there's the bigger, longer road. No matter what, you have to keep doing the work if you don't want to go backwards. But then there's also the minute by minute ability that we have to shift our state. And that is the really good news, guys. That is such good news, because yes, you may have spent your entire life here. That can be really scary, but it doesn't have to be the rest of your story. It doesn't have to say you're 40 years old, 40 years in these. Okay, you got 40 more years on this planet. You can live 80% of that here. You can start the next year living 50% here, right? That starts to sound exciting if you think of, do I want to live here for the next 40 years? Because the hard truth is, this isn't just mental health. It's not just, okay, life is going to be sucky if you're here. This is disease. This is when your body starts to shut down. This is where cancer and autoimmunity and heart disease, like all of these things, physical health symptoms live here. Poor circulation, a compromised heart function, like a nervous system that is in these states cannot keep up with cellular renewal and all the things that a healthy body is supposed to do. So we've got to start shifting out of here. We have to, for our mental and our physical health. Again, they're one and the same. They're not two different things. So what's the fastest way to get here, right? You obviously want a tool. Whether or not you can work with me or another trauma therapist or somatic coach or nutritionist or anything else, right? You need to have some tools to shift into that state. Two really powerful, simple tools are your mindset and your breath. They're free. They're with you all the time. You can control them anywhere. Like, you don't have to pack something with you. Those are two of the most powerful, and they get completely overlooked in the bells and whistle, like, okay, I need to go, do an ayahuasca retreat in the jungle to heal my trauma. Cool, that may be helpful, but more than anything, your time and your energy would be served a lot better if you actually worked on these little things consistently, because consistency is everything in this dynamic. Again, do you want to go try to run a marathon on Saturday and need 6 months to recover from that? Or do you want to start exercising 10 minutes, 5 days a week over the next 6 months? That's a pretty logical response. Which one's going to give you a better, more sustained outcome? We need to look at this nervous system regulation and this emotional health in the same way. So, breath, the simplest way to do it is to extend your exhale. We want to be breathing from the diaphragm. I have a whole course that I'm making on conscious breath and why breath is so powerful for our nervous system and our mental health and our cellular health as a whole. So if you're interested in diving deeper into that and really understanding all the different techniques and the hows and whys, definitely look out for that. But simply put, It's learning to breathe from your diaphragm. Let me show you here. Not here. Panting, mouth breathing, neck muscles, throat, all of this that we get stuck in, that is a fast ticket right here, right? One-way ticket here. We spend most of our lives actually breathing like that. Dysfunctional breathing is a huge culprit. Again, it's a driver of this and it's a result of this. So it becomes an endless feedback loop. When we can start consciously breathing through our nose and extending our exhale just a little bit longer than our inhales, we automatically start to drop into this parasympathetic state of rest, digest, calm, safety. Quickest, easiest. I mean, it's free. You can do it anytime, anywhere. You just have to start becoming aware of it. So put some Post-it notes, get some breath work apps, put reminders on your phone. Posture and breath really change our physiological state so profoundly. It just takes a little bit of time and focus. You know, you have to be conscious of it. The other thing, of course, in this entire spectrum is, how do we really change our thoughts so that our physiology isn't going up here in this fight, flight, stress, freeze? This is kind of a 24/7. We breathe 24/7 and we're kind of thinking, at least while we're waking, right? So if 100% of the time we're breathing dysfunctionally, we're never going to get out of here. If 100% of the time we're thinking negative, combative, defensive, toxic, just anger-based thoughts, we're never going to be able to go down here. The problem with a lot of our society these days, the pill-based society, the insta fix, the give me all the dopamine hit, is we want to get here first and then we'll feel happy, right? We're like, just give me calmness and groundedness and safety, and we have all these things that we think are going to get us here. If I had more money, I would feel safe. If Bob stopped treating me this way, I would be grounded and settled. If, you know, Stacy would stop being such a jerk, I would be more compassionate. We have all these whys, all these caveats, which are barriers to entry to here, right? So just like we have all these feelings we need to feel in this little white void space that can kind of be a flat line and boring and uncomfortable and unfamiliar, we also have all these prerequisites, and we keep ourselves stuck out of these states. We're like, meh, well, it would be nice to be curious and compassionate and grounded and safe, but my boss is a jerk and I can't quit my job because I got to pay my bills. So you just stay in this negative, constant feedback loop of life sucks, danger, 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 or trap, 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 trapped. Here's your life, right? That's your life. If you don't start consciously changing your thoughts and consciously redirecting your breath, you're never going to get out of these states, period. Now, in my work, I use a lot of different tools to kind of fast track the process. The breath and the mindset are always the foundational pieces all day, every day. Just like you can go to the gym, have a great workout with the best trainer, but if you go and eat shit for the next 24 hours and the next 7 days before you see the trainer again, that workout's null and void, right? Mindset and breath are like that. They are the nutrition, they are the lifestyle parts, right? But we have other tools that can really fast track. We have, me in my practice, I use like Psych K, I use EFT, I use cranial sacral. I use a lot of different tools that work with the nervous system, the subconscious brain, mindset, cognition. They're all so cool, but they kind of help get the ball rolling, right? Because you can try to do this and it might take you 6-12 months before you have a 5% change. You can work with someone who's really customizing this to you, really getting your feedback, understanding what the next step of safety is for you and your nervous system. Just like in the gym, again, you've got to have a program that meets you where you're at and takes into account your vulnerabilities, injuries, weaknesses, and goals. The same applies to therapy and coaching and all of this nervous system stuff. So when you look at the thoughts and the breath, it needs to be done in a slow, methodical, consistent way. And then again, there's those bigger things, cranial sacral. I don't facilitate plant medicine, but I know that a lot of people get a lot of value out of that. Personally, I think that should be like the very, very, very icing on the cake after years and years of other work. Because I think there's a lot, lot more work that can be done and that will create more change with the consistency factor. So we can't put these barriers to entry and all these caveats and let our mind just constantly tell us that we can't be happy, we can't be healthy, we're out of control, because that is hopelessness, helplessness over here. Disempowerment 100% goes here. It's not on the list, but feeling disempowered, like you have no control over your life, you'll never get out of here. So you have to start thinking, what can I control? What can I change? Maybe in the moment, it's just to take 5 slow inhales. That's one. Took 5-10 seconds, right? When I start to feel hopeless, helpless, disempowered, what can I do right now? I can take a breath. I can slow down. I can choose a different, more empowered thought. I can look at things differently. I can sink into compassion and gratitude for, say, someone made me mad and I'm up here and I'm like, this insert expletive, phrase. I get here and I'm so mad and angry and I can feel my heart racing and I'm getting anxious and I'm getting mad and cortisol's rising. And I stop and I take a couple slow, deep breaths. And then I redirect my thoughts. I say, how can I take control over this situation? How can I bring my power back to me? Okay, I'm going to breathe a little bit. I'm going to drop into compassion for this person and the pain they must be in to be treating me that way. Or maybe there's some confusion, some miscommunication. Maybe I can offer some clarity. Maybe I can set a boundary. Maybe I can release the person. There's always a choice, right? We have to remind ourselves that we always have a choice. Maybe it's not to change the situation. Maybe it's not to control the situation. Maybe it's to change our shift in perspective, to look at things a different way. No matter what it is, we have a choice always. And how we can respond or how we can shift the environment or the dialogue or anything else. When we have that power, we pull it back to us. We drop into curiosity and openness or compassion. Again, to get to compassion, a lot of times it's curious. What could this person be going through? How could I communicate more kindly here? What shift could I create? What boundary can I put into place? Can I create a different process? Can I maybe get someone else for the job? That curiosity and openness, you pull yourself there with your thoughts, right? It's not just this thing that comes along and makes you curious and open and creative. You take yourself there with your mind. You ask yourself questions. You get to compassion. You get to gratitude. You get to groundedness. Okay, I'm here. So now I could stay up here for the rest of the day and fester on this and ruminate over this for a week because one person said one thing, or I can drop in with my breath, deactivate, ask some questions, be curious, look at things through compassion, sink into the solutions, get creative, get curious, use my imagination for good. That feels a lot better. That feels a lot better. And the thing is, there's not a lot of solution-based thinking here. We do not do our best thinking in either of these states. Here, we hardly think at all. Here, we definitely are not thinking our best. We can slide right on down to here with our breath and our thoughts, inquiry, and we can find solutions here. And this is how it becomes a snowball in the positive, because when we're here, we get better solutions. We communicate better. We de-escalate the situations far before they ever get completely out of control. People are always going to be people. This isn't a foolproof, because you may come down here and this person may still be a jerk and you still got to cut off communication or in the contract or whatever it is. You can't control other people, but you can certainly reduce the amount of time that you're involved, the capacity that you're involved, the energy that you're draining out, the expectation. There's so many things that you can gain control of and shift here when you drop into this state. So again, I don't think I completed my full thought earlier about the other tools that expedite this. If you have deep emotions and trauma that are fueling these negative states up here, childhood abandonment, a breakup, physical abuse, sexual abuse, all these different things, they're running kind of on silent repeat in our bodies. And it takes a lot to take our thoughts out of there. That's why I often say talk therapy is just one tiny little tool in the tool belt. You cannot think your way out of these states. You have to use the somatic tools. You have to get your body on board. Mindset's a part of it. Cognition is a part of it. But you have to go to that subconscious, which is things like EFT, hypnosis, Psych K, to release the pattern. And once you do that, using your thoughts becomes so much easier. It's like practically effortless. You unburden so much off of your body. Your body's not carrying this load and running this program 24/7 all day, every day. And again, that makes being down here a lot easier. So you can do the mindset, but it's kind of like white knuckles sometimes. It takes a lot of effort. You got to choose between tens of thousands of thoughts every day. That's a lot of work. So when you use sort of the heavy hitters, it's kind of like a wrecking ball comes and it gets out some of those big traumas, rewires some of those beliefs, clears out those big things that are working against you. And then things like breath work and mindset, nutrition, meditation, yoga, all of those things, not only can you stick with them because you're not fighting against yourself, but you can get so much more out of them. And it really takes your healing to whole new levels. So the big hitters are great. But, my thing with working on the books and the programs and the podcasts and everything else is everyone has a different entry point, a different level of access they can do. I want to be able to, whether you can ever work with someone, to give you tools that you can start the process. It may be a little bit more work, right? But just like you can have an investor and $100,000 to start a business or $1 million to start a business and maybe get there a little faster, you could still fail. You could succeed and it may be a little easier, but it may not work out in the end. Or there's plenty of people that have started businesses with $5 and hit the ground running, and they've hustled and they've been creative and, they really commit in a different way. There's a lot of different paths to the same end. So whatever you have available to you, you can work with that and you can create really positive, powerful shifts. And again, you may be at that starting point where it's really hard and you've got to focus on your breath and your thoughts a lot. But as you start building 3-6 months down the road, you might switch jobs. You might start making more money because you're not spending money on numbers and, drinking too much. And it's this whole like upward spiral, right? This like positive snowball that 6-12 months down the road, maybe you want to become a coach yourself. Maybe you want to hire somebody. It's constantly evolving in a positive direction, no matter where your starting point is. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope this helped explain some of the nervous system states and kind of what they mean, how they show up in our life, some of the barriers to getting down here. This is fulfillment, purpose, positivity, love. This is all the good stuff. We're never going to live here all the time, but we definitely want to start increasing the amount of time that we're in this. And we have to always keep in mind this little void space, the feeling, the emotions, processing the emotions, getting the right tools to be here so we don't default back to here. And then we also have to use that mindset to sort of dismantle those caveats, that if when, like thinking that we can't get here unless everything around us changes, starts with us. I have on my wrist, I'm sure it's backwards, but this was the first tattoo I got, and it says always within. And it is my constant reminder. I'm always committed to changing things in the world and making the world a better place. And, I have a lot of goals and ambitions in life, but I try to constantly remind myself that it's not about everything out there aligning perfectly for me to be the person I want to be. I've always got to redirect it to myself and focus internally and letting the other stuff be an after effect, right? I'm in control of my reality. I'm in control of the way I feel. I have to put the majority of my attention and energy there. And when I do, the environment around me always works better. It's always more cohesive. It always just aligns better versus when I'm clinging to control and grasping and trying to make things look a certain way and control other people. And it's got to look like this. I'm completely disempowered and disconnected from my innate strengths. My inner power, my creativity, everything when I'm attached out there. So this tattoo is really important to me. And it's my commitment to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Because again, this is a lifelong process. I've been in this field and doing all of this work for nearly 2 decades, and it's a constant process, just like my skincare and eating right and everything else that I do is. But I can tell you, the first 5 to 10 years was such a battle because I didn't have the right tools, and I was trying to constantly be in that white knuckle law of attraction, control everything space, like the Tony Robbins success mindset, everything. And I didn't have that gentler, softer, trauma sensitive element to things to understand how this works. And once I had that, I was just like, everybody's got to know this. Like, all of these different avenues are missing the boat. There's such a huge gap in what they're addressing, and people are struggling because of it. And I struggled for so many years. So this is why I could never just switch fields from nutrition and fitness to mindset or, success teachings or just trauma stuff. Cause I'm like, it actually all matters. It all comes together. And that's what I've spent the last 10 years, really perfecting in my business with my therapy, my coaching, and the work that I do, because I know what it's like to be there and be dysregulated and to constantly feel like you're doing swimming swimming upstream, an uphill battle. Oh my gosh. It's been a long day. I've been talking nonstop for like 6 hours. So please forgive my brain and the fact that it's kind of like, hey, we're done here. I'm definitely in the I need a nap mode. So I'm going to wrap this up for now. I could talk about this stuff all day, every day. It's my biggest passion. I hope that it was helpful for you. If you have any questions or anything else, let me know. And then don't forget, if you want to work with me one-on-one, you can send me an email from my website. Look out for the breathwork program that is coming soon. And the mindset stuff, that's an all day, everyday thing that you can start working on with no resources. But I'll also put some links to some of my favorite mindset books and even podcasts if you want to dive into that. So thanks for listening and tuning in. And I hope you guys found this helpful. Happy healing, and take care.